So I want to welcome you guys all back to another Ship and Sip. I'm your host, Erin, and I manage ShipStation's community, which is a place where people and users like you help each other with tips and tricks and solve complex workflow problems. We are here at a new time, and if you enjoy this time, please let us know in the community forum or through social media. We are so excited to be here in Dallas for our very first traveling Ship and Sip with our merchant White Rhino Coffee. If you are located in or around Dallas, please be sure to check out White Rhino. Today, we're going to be discussing trends that have come and gone in e-commerce and some trends that are here today. We are joined here today with Nicholas Galbraith of 3D for Us LLC, Tack Anderson of Sendle, and Trent Mervine of Big Ass Luxuries. Thank you guys so much for joining us. To start this off, I'm going to go ahead and ask each of our panelists to introduce yourself and your business. So I will go ahead and start with you, Nicholas.
Yeah, hi, I'm Nick. I'm the director of US operations for 3D for Us. We're a laser engraving operation in the US basis here in Dallas. We do anything from jewelry to custom greeting cards to cake toppers. Basically, if you can laser engrave it, we do it, and then we sell on Amazon and Etsy. So we're all online, direct to consumer.
Awesome. And Tack?
Yeah, Tack Anderson, the VP of Marketing for Sendle. Sendle is a shipping and logistics service built specifically for small businesses. We integrate with ShipStation, and yeah, excited to be here today.
My name is Trent Mervine from Big Ass Luxuries. I'm actually the founder of it, along with my wife, who's in the back. And as you can imagine, we focus on very large luxury home goods that kind of have virality built into it. So very Instagrammable products, which has allowed us to grow really fast recently and kind of rely on ShipStation. So I think that's why they had us come here today. So thanks for having us.
Perfect. Thank you guys all so much. Trent, I'm going to start with you because we're already right there. Can you tell me what e-commerce trend that you've seen or tried that just really did not work for you?
Yeah, for us, like I mentioned, it's very like Instagrammable products. It's our hero product is called the Big Ass Candle. So it's kind of laughable, but it's still affordable and looks very classy, very, very pretty product. So one thing we kind of got in the trap of is like paying influencers. So I think people can tell when you pay them, it's just not authentic. If they have an upfront fee, I'd probably stay away from it. Do something like influencer seeding where you're just giving them more like free products, or really try to get in with them personally and do like a commission structure or something. So yeah, just paying influencers is not authentic and most people can tell.
Follow-up question to that. Have you found a way to get like that kind of influencer without paying or without having to deal with that? Like, have you done more grassroots efforts or?
Yeah, only grassroots efforts for that. There's really not a scalable way to do it,
Right.
rather than like a nice, our product, maybe even with a custom logo, with a handwritten note, just trying to get in the door that way. So also like signing up for events that influencer might have, like one of them had a pop-up shop, so pop-up event. So we applied for that and got in good with her. So yeah, it's really like smaller things that you can still do as a small business, like reach out personally, try to get in front of them, or just send them free product at the least.
Yeah, and that's really good news because we have a lot of small businesses. Not everybody can afford influencers. They can't afford those contracts. So thank you for sharing that. Trent, or not, sorry, Trent. Oh God, I was looking at Trent. I'm so sorry about that, Tack. Same question to you. Just from a different perspective, what kind of e-commerce trend have you guys seen that you've just seen that doesn't work for people?
I think so. Being on the logistics side, we work with a lot of different small businesses, and I think it's hard to pin it down to just one thing. I think piggybacking a little bit off of what Trent said is, I think the biggest trap is like getting caught up in a trend, right? Like trend chasing. I think the best thing to do is like to chase your customers and figure out what are your customers into, what are your customers doing, where are they, what are they participating in, and then try and enable that or participate, giving the candles to influencers that are naturally into that, aesthetic, like is a great example of that. Or, I think back to, so 20 years ago or so, I used to own a skateboard shop. I ran my retail business. I know what that's like. And all the kids that were coming into my shop kept talking about MySpace. So I'm totally dating myself. And like, this is how long ago that was, right? But I was like, hey, all of my customers are on MySpace. Maybe my shop should be on MySpace, right? So it's not like I was like, oh, let's go do this new social media thing. It wasn't even called social media then, but like, I wasn't chasing it because like, that's what the cool thing was. It was like, oh, this is where my customers are. I should participate with my customers are. And I think if you take that approach, like you'll hardly ever go wrong. I think you do run into the challenge of trying to scale that and like, do that while you're doing 100 other things while you're running a business. That can be challenging. But I would say in general, if you're chasing a trend, like it's going to probably end up bad more often than not.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing advice. Follow your customer base, not grasping at what you see other people do to succeed. Where is your customer base? I think that's really amazing advice to kind of take forward. Nick, same question to you.
Yeah. So I think in the alternative of that is like for us, our customer base is more smaller items. So it's all personalized, which is personal to people, but we don't sell a lot of stuff that's heavy. We don't sell a lot of stuff that's massive. I mean, our average cost is under $10 per item. So our customer base is the people that are looking for a nice gift to give to somebody, but they don't want to break the bank. And so we don't do a lot of like the influencers or like online stuff like that. But at the same time, the trap that we tried and didn't work for us was going with like the more expensive items and trying to customize those. It's like our margins were way worse. And so instead of doing the Yeti cup or the Swell, get the knockoff that looks identical. And my customer doesn't care as much because they're like, well, I don't want to pay $50, $60 for the cup. I want to pay 12. I want to pay 15. So for us, it was that kind of, we realized our marketplace was much smaller price point wise, and then broader.
Now, when you guys do that, do you also offer like both options, like the Yeti, or do you just go for where your customer base
So
is?
if we're doing like B2B, so if we're doing like more to businesses, we'll offer the more premium product if that's what they want. But on our stores and stuff, no, we just do the cheaper option just because we found that for us, the margins work way better.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Speaking of approaches being individualized to your customer, one size fits all emails are just not working anymore. Like everybody gets them, nobody likes them. You need to have a strategy for engaging customers. How can merchants tailor their communications? And we'll start with you, Tag.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is that most of the tools that you're using to send email today, unless you're using like your own personal Gmail account or something, like if you're using any type of CRM system out there, they've all have customization built into it. So I think it comes back to probably the first step is making sure that you're taking advantage of like even just the basic features that are in whatever tool that you're at. I mean, it will take a little bit of time. You've got to like figure it out, set up. But again, I think I might sound like a broken record on this panel, but like I think it comes back to understanding who your customers are. And then even within your customers, like you just shared a great example, you have multiple segments within your customer, right? So you've got the individuals that are like, the value of the item is the customization, right? It's the engraving. It's not the fact that it says Yeti or not. Whereas in the B2B space, and they're trying to do something for a partner or customer or an employee, right? Like the value is in the higher end items. So like understanding the differences within your customers. And then once you understand that, then you can kind of understand, okay, well, like what are they going to value in, that type of email communication? Is it, in a B2B space, they might want a newsletter that's around, gifting and how to do corporate gifting. Whereas if it's an individual, that there's, we were just talking about this before the panel, right? You've got graduation is a huge area for you, right? Like Mother's Day was probably pretty big. You've got Christmas. So, your peak season. So maybe those customers you only engage with during certain times of the year. So understanding your customers and like how you bring value to that relationship. But the good news is, again, like pretty much any of the tools that you can get off the shelf, whether it's any of them have this built in. So it's just taking the time to figure it out.
And learning your segments and how to kind of approach them. Nick, going back to you, same question.
Yeah, so we predominantly use Amazon and Etsy to sell on, and so they have stuff built in where we can market through them. And we found that that works. The other thing that for us that is a huge mover is reviews. So one bad review can taint an entire product. One great review can make it insane. So if you have a customer that has an issue with something, we found that like it's better to just handle it, take care of it, replace that item, fix that item, whatever we need to do, and then ask, say, hey, can you guys give us a great review? And most of the time they will. And even if it's a difference between like a 4-star review and a 5-star review, we found that like that is a massive difference in moving product for us. So
That's a really good point. Trent, same question to you.
Yeah, ours is a little bit different than that. We like to really engage our audience, whether it be through email or social, whatever it might be, but even getting feedback on like, hey, should we do this for a certain design or that, having them vote on it, or just asking them for ideas. And then once you produce that product, if they feel like they had a say in how it was produced, or they feel like they voted for that color and that's the color we chose, like I think they're more engaged with the brand and just more enticed than to buy that product at the end of the day.
That's a really good point, making it a little bit more interactive, like the email serves a purpose and that there's something that you have to do to interact instead of just sending emails that are like, hey, this is what we're doing, giving your customers a voice. Our next question here is, what suggestions do you have about when to include free shipping with orders to increase sales? Nick, I'm going to start with you on this one.
yeah, so we've seen that like, especially in the US, people want to pay less for shipping. So even if that means like the cost of the item is higher, they would rather see a $15 item with free shipping than a $12 item with $3 in shipping. So it's the same cost to me, but they feel like they're getting a deal when they get that free shipping. So we try to do it as much as possible. And we keep our shipment costs as low as possible as well. So for us, it's building that into the price of the item. And then also if we do have a shipping cost, keeping it like sub $1 is usually where we're at. And on our products, that's doable, but yeah, we found that it's very necessity to make it.
Did you guys start that way, or did you like realize that you were getting abandoned carts? Or
yeah, so we didn't start that way, but that's because we started in the UK and that's a completely different marketplace. They actually don't care about shipping costs. They'll pay the shipping cost if the cost of the item's cheaper. So we actually have a higher shipping cost with a lower priced item, and we do the opposite here.
Wow, that's really interesting because I didn't even think about that it would be a different mindset. Trent.
Yeah, I would say Nick might not agree with this, but I would say to just keep trying to increase that order value to a certain point where they finally qualify for that free shipping. And you can do something at checkout, for example, that's like, hey, spend $20 more and get free shipping. So kind of something like a nudge to get them over that, just because with us, it's like very heavy items. The shipping is expensive. So if you offer free shipping, it's going to really cut into margins. And then imagine if that person now wants to swap it out or return it, something like that, that's just cutting into margins even further. So I would say just like up that threshold a little bit, and add in those nudges at checkout to try to like push them over that free shipping edge.
Oh, and it's also interesting because you guys are similar, but not similar at all. So it's interesting to see how your customer base, like Tack was saying, like we're going to be talking about knowing your customers a lot today. And this is a perfect example of that. Like your customers prefer to spend a little bit more. They respond to that nudge. Tack, same question to you. I can repeat if you need.
No, I think, yeah. So, yeah, the pros and cons, so I would say test it, right? Just going to the point, like, you can ask your customers, and of course, they're all going to say, yeah, I want free shipping. Like everyone wants free everything. Like, of course, that's what they're going to say. So definitely I would test it and see what those thresholds are, is dependent. A lot of it depends on the cost of your product, the ability to bundle your product together. Like some products naturally bundle, some it's like, I don't need 3 of that. I only need 1 of that. And I think offering we see a lot of times with our own customers, a lot of their customers are even willing to have like slower shipping or uninsured shipping, right? Like cheaper shipping options if it means free. So giving those people the option at checkout. But I think there's a lot of different ways to go with that. A lot of variations. So I would definitely say, test a few different and see what works for you.
Yeah, that's definitely really good advice. And honestly, ShipStation recently released a study where it's more and more customers care more about options than they want you to give them X, Y, or Z. They'd like to have that choice because at a certain point in time, all customers, or the majority, wanted free shipping. But now customers want that option to pay for more if it is something that they value. Speaking of that, perfect tie-in, 30% of orders are returned. Having a clear return policy is more important now than ever. How can merchants build out a clear return policy to make returns easy? And we'll start with you, Tack.
Yeah, I think it kind of comes back to like keeping your customer informed, right? There is a balance, right? Like you don't want to put too much friction before a checkout, right? Because like, you increase abandoned cart rates. So I think what I've seen merchants test a few different scenarios. Some is to include the return policy right in the product description. So that it's there while they're making the choice. Some I've seen include it in the checkout. To me, that feels, that scares me. Just as a marketer, that kind of like putting any more friction in the checkout process, but I've seen some people do it, so it might work for some people. But I think there's two factors there. Even if, so let's say you don't offer returns, right? Like, hey, this just because of the nature of the product or the margins or whatever, we can't do returns. Or if it's a customized product with someone's name on it, maybe. I mean, that's hard to do. But I think being really clear up front, because while I think it'll, even if it reduces slightly some of the like the volume, I think what it does is it eliminates or significantly reduces the customer dissatisfaction, right? So it reduces the chance that you're going to get a negative review. It reduces the chance that you're going to get a customer complaint because they knew what they were getting when they signed up for it. But I think more and more, I think it does come back to the days customers now, they want to be informed and they want to know what their options are. So yeah. Yeah,
that makes sense. Trent.
Yeah, I would say if you do offer returns, just set expectations, like you said, like more than you think you need to, because most customers probably won't read it. So set expectations, just let them know like, hey, we don't do this is final sale. If you do returns, we're evaluating this product. There's just a plug here for returnly.com. So they kind of like automate that whole process. I think they're owned by a firm, I believe, but we're evaluating it. So as a consumer, I've used it. It's amazing. Like, don't even have to interact with anybody, and it makes it super easy to return or swap out an item. So just make it easy if you do offer returns, or set expectations if you don't.
Yeah. And for that, does it allow you to kind of keep track of not only just the returns that are happening, but like reasons and things like that, giving you more data to be able to progress further and maybe eliminate some return issues? Exactly.
Yeah. It takes out a lot of the just like the manual work that our customer service person has to do when it comes to returns.
Right. Same question to you, Nick.
Yeah. So kind of as you alluded to, everything's personal for us. So it's really hard to take back like happy 80th birthday, Nana. But so we don't offer returns on anything, but we get all the time. People are like, hey, I need to send this back. I didn't get what I wanted. I didn't read correctly, and I input Nana's name wrong or whatever. And we found that it's easier for us just to handle that problem, take care of it, make the customer happy, send them out the new product, and eat that for the better review. Because even though it's a personalized product, everybody has the assumption of, oh, it's probably not returnable. They're gonna post that bad review. They're going to put it on there. And so for us, we just build it into the margin of we're probably gonna have to replace that item potentially. So we just build that in and go from there.
So for you guys, do you have customers send back the product, or are you just like, it is what it is because it's not going to be usable?
Yeah, we don't. If they reach out to us, they're just like, hey, just keep it, no big deal.
Mhm.
But we will have people that will send the product back still too.
Well, and that also, like, it's not feasible for every business type, but for something like this, eating that cost and just putting it into your margin is smarter than trying to, hassle with shipping labels and making sure that you get the product back and all of that. So it's really interesting to see, again, different businesses, different approaches, and different consumer bases, what they expect. And also, I think it's really interesting, Tack, what you brought up about putting the return policy in the product description. That's such a unique idea. Recently, I purchased something from a company, and when I got my shipping confirmation, the return policy was right there, like as soon as I got it. So it was there, as you said, in the product description, but also in the email. So reaffirming that at every
I think
stage.
it's going back to what Trent was saying, right? Like no one reads anymore online, right? We all
Right.
skim. I'm just as guilty, not pointing fingers. We all skim. So like having it in multiple areas. And I think going back to what you were saying, it's just, it all depends on your margins, right?
Mhm.
A lot of customers, if it's a high enough margin, they're not opposed to paying for shipping to come back,
Right.
right? So like being able to evaluate, do you offer returns? Do you offer free returns? Do you, like, there's so many variations there. Like you really
Mhm.
got to think what works for your business, what works for your customer. And again, I would say test what works.
Right. And before we move on, Trent, so you have the big ass candle. How do you handle that for returns? Because that's a heavy item. So like the return shipping is going to be a little bit heavier. Do you guys just go for it, or?
We go for it. We do ask for pictures and everything just to make
Mhm.
sure it's legitimate. But again, people will we do offer small sample sets so people can actually get a small version before committing to the big one.
Right.
So that's another way to kind of maybe offering really inexpensive samples to have them try something before they commit to the big one. So that kind of brings down our return rate. But
Mhm.
yeah, I would say, especially if you're small and new, you are going to swap it out, and if it does look like they had a problem, you just want to make sure that customer's happy and they come back to buy. And I see it as another sales opportunity. You can be like, sorry about this.
Right.
Here's 20% off your next order. And a
Mhm.
lot of times you can turn that problem into a new sale.
I would piggyback on that because that's one thing that we do.
Mhm.
Repeat sales are huge for us. So you buy a card for grandma's birthday, you love it. Oh, you got 4 weddings coming up. You buy a card for each of those. So it's like, but if you got the first one and it wasn't right, and then we don't replace it, you're going to somebody else. So to piggyback on that, like just make that customer happy up front, and then it leads to sales down the road, which covered the cost of that one maybe having to be shipped back to you and replaced.
Yeah, that's really important because it's not necessarily a loss. It's just an investment in future business. And sometimes it's important to do that. The next question is, what is a trend that you're seeing come up that really excites you? And we'll start with Tack on this.
I think for me, so I worked for Amazon for about 10 years, a little while ago, right? And so it's just kind of like during the whole rise of, they really set the tone for a long time around 2-day shipping and free shipping. They really set that expectation. I think the trend that I'm actually really excited about right now is I see that starting to wane, right? I see like with customers, they understand that there's a cost to free shipping. They understand that there's a cost to 2-day shipping, whether it's on the environment or on warehouse employees or, the overall strain on the logistics network. And more people are starting to move away and look for smaller customers that they can buy from. And they understand that, hey, like, do I really need something in 2 days? Like, yeah, half the time, like, something gets there in 2 days and it sits next to my door for 3 days until I finally get around to opening the box. Like, do they really need it there that quickly? And so the trend that I'm actually really excited about, and you even see this on Amazon too, prime shipping doesn't mean 2 days anymore, right? Like it can be up to a week or more. So I think the trend that I'm excited about is going back to like, hey, customers, they all don't need a one size solution, which is fastest, cheapest. They want a solution that works for them, and they want choices when they're buying, and they're willing to look for those choices beyond just, 1 or 2 retailers. So that's a trend I'm actually really excited about.
It is really cool to kind of see that kind of standard, like Amazon set the standard and that was what was expected. And now customers kind of have a little bit more influence of what businesses are doing. And it's really great to see that choice. Trent.
Yeah, I would say this is kind of an ongoing trend, but just the barriers to entry are getting lower and lower when it comes to trying out a new idea, whether you're an established company and you want to launch a new product or start a new business from scratch. You can easily test it, test the demand for it even
Mhm.
before you have the product. And then obviously everybody's been freaking out about AI recently. So like soon you won't even have to do that much work. You'll just have a computer come up with the idea for you, test the demand of the idea for you, and then present those results to you. And then maybe you can decide what you want to do from there. I think big companies are already doing that, but that's becoming more and more accessible to everyone.
It is really cool to see like AI become this thing that was kind of behind closed doors, and now it's coming to like the masses, and now everybody can utilize it. So I agree with you 100%. Nick.
Yeah, I think to piggyback on that, just like the technology, especially in the personalization space, the barrier to entry on like different ways to personalize stuff is coming down. So you can do it cheaper now and under your own roof, which makes your margins better on everything, which makes it, you can scale up, you can offer that other product you might not have been able to offer, opens new doors for you. So I think, yeah, the technology is just, it's going to help on every level, and especially for the small business.
I would agree with that. On the flip side of what we just discussed here, what is a trend that you didn't think would have impact or catch on, but ended up performing really, really well for you? Trent.
Yeah, I think one that I kind of laughed at when I first saw it was like the live shopping. It's almost like now they have like QVC online, where there's one company that's gotten really big is Comment Sold. I don't know if you've seen that, but you can like Facebook live stream and people can comment to buy that product. So I thought that was, I would see people filming that at like trade shows or something and just laugh at it. But their companies are growing very well. So that's something that we're embracing, and I know we need to do, which I thought was just silly at first, but I think it's necessary now.
And I have to agree with you, because I saw it on Facebook before it even went to like Instagram or TikTok. And I thought like, okay, maybe this will die with Facebook, like, or die with when Facebook dies down for businesses, which it's not, but it's interesting to see the impact of that actually in real life. Tack.
Yeah, you sent the questions over and I could never actually come up with a really good answer for this one. I mean, I think for me, I think kind of what's been interesting to watch is just since like the pandemic, and I think lockdown, there's been a lot of talk around like, remote work, or, the office work, or with like the layoffs. There's, one of the things I love that I am seeing as well is with the pandemic, we saw a huge increase in people starting their own businesses, right? A lot of people had some extra downtime, or they're working from home, or there was a need to, or just an opportunity to. I think a lot of people expected that to go away once the pandemic kind of ended and things kind of like returned to normal, whatever the heck that means. But I think what I really enjoy seeing is that, and I think it's probably partially necessitated by all of the layoffs and everything that have been happening, is we're still seeing an increase of people starting their own businesses, which, as someone who's owned a small business before, like I love to see that, and have so much like sympathy and excitement for people that are like you guys that are starting your own businesses and running your own businesses. I think that's, more small businesses, please. And I think we're still seeing more of that. So I hope that trend continues.
Yeah. I don't have the direct statistic, but we recently put out a study that there are more consumers who are willing to take sacrifices to support small, even right now. And I think that's really beautiful to see, like, even outside of saying, I know it's going to cost me more, or shipping is going to cost me more, but I'm supporting a person or a small business. So that's, I
will say, if I can just piggyback off of that, something that like I would highly encourage everyone to do. So, when I owned my business 20 years ago, it was everyone had retail businesses and you were starting to move them online. And maybe this kind of goes into your last question a little bit. I think the trend that I would love to see more too is like e-commerce businesses that are starting to have a physical presence. And it doesn't have to be like a retail location. It could be, like you said, doing pop-up stores, or I think something I would highly encourage everyone to do is like make your small business have a local touch point somewhere. because those, to your point, like those, your local, the people who live around you, the people who live in your community, like they're gonna be way more likely to support you because you are a small business and talk about you and tell their friends about you. So having that physical and digital touch point is just, it's really powerful. It's way more powerful than people give it credit for. So I would definitely look at, if you're online only, like look for those opportunities to have some sort of physical touch point, whether it's sponsoring an event like this or, showing up at a street fair or a farmer's market or something. I don't know, like do something local.
Yeah. Nick.
Yeah. I guess for us, like one of the trends that I didn't see coming at all, and I honestly thought it was really like dumb, was cake toppers. So like that sounds crazy. But the pandemic happened and we started our company during the middle of it. And you couldn't blow out candles on a cake anymore because you're just contaminating the whole cake. And so people pivoted to putting a cake topper on it. And so that was something for us that was a product that we could then sell. But I think we've seen that even since the pandemic in be innovative in what you're designing and making and like find new products that you could have that influence your area. And so that was a cool like thing for me that like I was like such a small, simple item that I would have never thought would have been a seller is one of our main sellers. And it still is to this day, even though like people are back putting candles on cakes and it's no big deal, but like that's still one of our massive sellers. So
Wow. And in the UK, were you guys open before the pandemic?
yeah.
So did you see that rise as the pandemic started? Like you could actually see, wow, that's really crazy. I didn't even think about like blowing out candles, but that's such an impact of like a post-COVID world. So actually I do have the number. We found that 81% of consumers will make efforts to shop with small businesses in 2023. What are some trends that small businesses should adopt, kind of riffing off of what we just talked about? And I'll start with you, Trent, at the end.
Yeah, I think while kind of repeating what I said earlier, while you're small, you can do these things that necessarily you wouldn't be able to do when you're a lot bigger. So like, yeah, do things that might not scale, like smaller events, like coming here today, I think is super important. Although maybe in the future I might be too busy too, but I love to do local pop-ups and everything like that, just to build those grassroots and that kind of like foundation of a community around you while you are small and while you can, while also being different than all the millions of competitors out of there, whether that be doing something with personalization or just excellent customer service. Whatever it might be is just find a way to be different from the crowd, stand out from the crowd, and do those things that don't scale, because if you're lucky, one day you won't be able to.
Yeah, like scale, like build loyalty with things that you can't necessarily do as you get bigger, because you'll have advocates.
Yeah, meeting customers face to face is the best way to get feedback, and seeing their reaction face to face rather than behind a mask or a computer screen is very helpful.
Nick.
Yeah, I would say instead of having like 5 or 6 things you do decent, have like one thing you do really well. So like focusing on that one thing, especially as a small business, and do that one thing really, really, really well, and build your customer base around that. And then after you've built that, then grow that into and try new things. But if you have that one thing you can do amazing, that you're better than everybody else at, it'll make it easier to then try different things, because you've got that base of like, okay, I can fall back on this and then I can go try that other thing. So I'd say, yeah, just kind of like, instead of going scattershot with it, hone in, find that one thing that you want to focus on, and then move from there.
Yeah, instead of being like a jack of all trades but master of none, you have the one thing that you excel at. Tech.
Yeah, to make kind of already answer this question a little bit,
Right.
as far as, but I think I can kind of give an example of that. So I mentioned before, I know many people came in late or joined late, but I used to own a skateboard shop. It was in Las Vegas. We, started a MySpace page because that's where our customers. So again, I'm dating myself. How long ago it was, but we combined that with, we started doing events in our parking lot. So we would actually do like snowboarding events in our park. We'd like truck down snow from the mountain and build little ramps, and and it was like, we just did it because it was fun, but like they became like hugely popular. And we'd have people that would drive all across the city because they'd hear about these little events and stuff. And so I think like doing stuff that like you think is really cool and doing stuff that your customers think is cool, like or that they appreciate. And so going back to like my very first answer of like understanding who your customer is and having those touch points with them is like, it's a competitive advantage that the big guys don't have that you guys as a small business do have. And so take advantage of that.
And I would say like you said, like you are your own customer. You started the company for a reason. Like you saw a need usually. And so you filled that. So like, if you've got something you think is cool, like the snowboard pop-ups and stuff like that, like do it because it's probably worth it because you're your own customer. So, you know, lean into that.
Yeah, you're user number one, basically. So my final question to you guys before we open up to the audience questions is, if you started a new business today, what are 3 things that you would do to grow your business? And tack.
If I started a business today, so it would definitely have a local connection. Honestly, I think maybe because it goes back like, I would have some sort of a physical presence in addition to the digital. Yeah, like I don't know what exactly the business would be. There are several, you know, my wife and I always joke about different things we would do, but I would definitely, for me, like I would have a physical and I would take advantage of both of those. And then I would say some things that I learned from the first time I ran a business was get just the tools that exist today are way better than they existed 20 years ago. So taking full advantage of those, you know, the ShipStations of the world didn't exist when I was running my business, or at least not to the degree that they do today. And so being able to manage your inventory and manage your finances and all those things just way more efficient. So getting the most, taking the time to invest in the tools that really enable your business is just really powerful today. And then I think probably the third thing would be just to, I think going back to kind of what you'd alluded to with the one question around email and stuff, but, and you both had talked about like building that connection with your customers, right? Like surveying your customers, finding out what do they think about a new product, incorporating them into the business. That just has, it just has a virality to it that you can't buy, right? And so doing those type of things, I think early on in your business just guarantees the success at a much higher rate.
Yeah, that's 100% fair. Trent, same question to you.
Yeah, if I were to start a business again, I would not do heavy, fragile items. But in all seriousness, I would definitely have like a clear differentiator, something that people are going to remember you by, something that stands out from the crowd, just because, yeah, I mean, the competition is there's never going to be less of it.
Right.
Also, might be a good idea to start with a customer. Like I'm not talking about like a signed contract, but it's important to not be shy and get your ideas out there, even if they sound dumb, because you might find that one person that's like, oh, like if you do that, I'll buy it from you. And then that's just a one sign for you that's telling you that, hey, maybe I should pursue this. So yeah, be different, start with a customer. That's a great starting point. And then I think you want to have a clear path to profitability, of course, profitability, just because I think gone are the days of just like building something without that date of profitability in mind, which I think is great. It's causing businesses to be more efficient and everything. So obviously, if it needs to be a lot quicker if you have less money, or maybe it might take a while till you reach profitability, but you just need to have that mapped out and know how you're going to get there.
Right. That it's not enough just to plan your business anymore. It's to plan like your milestones, like when you want to hit them.
Yeah.
Same question to you, Nick. I know that you already said, you know, find one thing to stand out, but building upon that.
Yeah, I would say build responsibly. So, you know, have your goals in mind, have what you want to do, and then scale according to that. Don't get too big too quickly, but also don't not think you're going to get big quickly. I mean, e-commerce is a marketplace that you're wanting to hit that fireball. You're wanting to catch fire. You're wanting people to like, oh, now I want to buy your product, but you've got to be ready for it. Because if you're not ready to scale up when it happens and you just have to write off all those orders and you can't fill them, well, then as quickly as it came, it goes away. So I would say like, be prepared for the highs, but then also like be prepared for the lows. I mean, like right now is one of our busiest seasons of the year and Christmas is our other one, but we have to scale up for those and then also like scale down. So I think knowing that balance is really important. And then, you know, have passion in it. If you're passionate about the product you're selling, that's awesome. Like lean into that. If you're passionate about the business side of it, lean into that and find somebody that's passionate about the product you're trying to sell. But I'd say like find those people and those niches to like fit, because you may not be the business person, you may be the vision person. So find a partner that is the business person. Because I think the hardest thing for small businesses is the business runs you, you don't run the business. And so the quicker you can start running the business and not letting the business run you, the quicker it will be easier. And that's easier said than done.
Yeah, those are all really good advice kind of points for everybody to kind of keep in mind. Thank you guys for answering all of my questions. We're going to move on to the audience questions. And I have a few questions from online, and then we're going to ask you guys if you guys have any questions for our amazing panelists. The first one is going to go to you, Trent, is what was a key element to your brand development?
Key element to the brand development, like I keep saying, was just a clear differentiator. Like we really do only focus on very large items, hence the name Big Ass. And then when people get it, we do encourage them to post about it and everything. So it kind of has that virality built into it. I think it, if you have a viral coefficient, they call it, of over 1, like if you sell to 10 people, if one of those people tells a friend, then you can just grow exponentially. So I think that's what did it. Definitely getting it in front of some influencers in the early days and kind of working close with them to help promote it worked without doing like an upfront fee where they just post it and forget about you.
Right.
So those types of things.
Yeah. Nick, I think you have a really unique perspective on this one as well, because you guys were already established in the UK. How did you guys handle brand development when it came to the US presence?
Yeah, so it was easier for us because we were already in the UK. So especially with like Amazon, we were able to piggyback our reviews off that, piggyback our sales. So when someone looked us up, it's all, 100,000 sales versus like 1 sale on Amazon.
Right.
So that definitely made that process easier. But I would say, getting customer reviews that were 5-star reviews and that kind of stuff, that is huge, especially on Amazon and Etsy. Like you want to be Amazon choice. You want to be those people that when they search that product, you're popping first. So just making sure that you're doing everything and following all the rules that Amazon sets in place, because there's a ton of them, can only help you.
And Tack, I know when you had your business and also seeing all of these businesses that you work with, is there anything that you think is like key for brand development?
Yeah, I think, so I can speak being the VP marketing for Sendle. We do a lot of brand work. And it was, it's not dissimilar to what I did when I owned my own business. And it piggybacks kind of off something Trent said, is just like really differentiating yourself against your competitors. So our competitors are UPS and FedEx. They're really boring brands. They're really easy for us to differentiate against. So we have fun graphics, we have fun in our copy. We just take a lighter approach. So it's really, from a brand perspective, it's really easy to differentiate ourselves. So I think finding, like, how do you set yourself apart amongst your competitors is definitely, smart advice.
Yeah. Find out what your competitors do and what you can have the advantage of, like know your competitors so you can know yourself. The next question is, does branding and packaging really matter for repeat customers? And start with Trent.
It's a good question because I think at the beginning, when you're a small business, if you wait until you have the perfect product and packaging, you're just never going to launch it.
Right.
So I think the product needs to be as perfect as you can make it. And then just to get it to that person, you want it to arrive safely, rather than like looking pretty. You just want it to be working and everything. So I think, and especially if you're going for retail shelving, you obviously want to have retail ready packaging. But at the beginning, you might not be able to afford that or afford that high of volume or something like that. So you just want to like your products, but just know it doesn't have to be perfect before shipping it out. And if it's not, your customers will be sure to tell you what you need to fix.
right? Because it's an evolving process. You aren't going to get it perfect. As you said, if you wait for perfect, you're never going to launch. Nick, same question to you.
Yeah, I would say it matters depending on your customer. So like for y'all, your packaging probably matters a lot more than for us. You know, someone orders a $8 cake topper, they're not expecting it to come beautifully wrapped and like, you know, the packaging to cost more than the product they just got. So it doesn't need to be bad. It needs to get there, I would say. Like that's our biggest thing is like get it there to where that card's not damaged, that cake topper's not damaged, so but however you can do that. And then if it fits in your budget. So we keep our shipping cost extremely low. I mean, we ship, I'd say 60% of our products as letters. So like it's very low shipping cost. And we have custom packaging to make that happen. But you know, that's the difference between like ours and y'all's. So I'd say like know your customer. Does packaging matter to your customer? Then maybe lean more into it. But if it doesn't, then it's not as big of a deal.
And again, what Tack had said earlier, like knowing your customer, you can't chase the trends. You have to chase your customer.
I think I actually just talked about this with a friend the other day. He does branded another startup. Like everyone talks about like the Apple experience, right? It's kind of like the benchmark. Like for Apple, like their packaging is an extension of the product, right? They didn't start with like, you can't put a crappy product in like that type of packaging and have it be great. Like it is just an extension of their overall like ethos and like the philosophy of how they think about their product. So like, unless you're an Apple, like you don't need Apple packaging like that level. And I think to the point you actually, I think the bigger point is, you know, that you know, it's one thing if you're going to have a retail presence, right? And you need to stand out on a shelf from everyone else. But if you're sending stuff to your customers through the mail, like you need an appropriately sized container. Like too big a packaging is actually going to increase your costs. Not just the packaging can be really expensive, but then the shipping cost it impacts all those things factor in. So I would think about the total delivered experience to your customer, right? From their checkout experience to the emails that they get to the time when they open the box, what's in the box. Oftentimes, you know, I know as a consumer, you know, having like a nice message inside there that like shows some humanity behind, like some personality behind the company. I'd rather have like a little note in there than like some super fancy packaging. So I think there's all kinds of things you can do to what is that delivered experience versus what is the packaging, what does the wrapper look like?
Yeah, there's no one right way to branding, just like there's no one right way to approach your customers. I think that's really important. So we are going to open it up to the audience. We're going to have time for a few questions here. If you have additional questions, you'll be able to ask our panelists those questions later today. But are there any questions? No? Oh, yes. Hi. So you talk, or what was it?
Nick.
Hi. You talked a lot about reviews. So you said Etsy and Amazon. Do you have your own website? And if so, what type of plugin you use for reviews?
Yeah, so we actually don't in the US. We do in the UK because we sell mass quantities. So like the name of our game is like more products rather than like more expensive products. So like this month alone, we'll send out close to 100,000 products. And so with that in mind, we didn't want to deal with the regulations of like, well, we sold too much in California this month. Guess I've got to file state taxes there and I've got to file income taxes there now. Or same thing with like Georgia or whatever, and every state's different. So we were actually advised by our accounting team to like, hey, let Amazon and Etsy handle that. You're paying them their fees. You're cutting into your margins. Like they take their percentage and it hurts. But on the other side, you're not dealing with having to figure out like, oh, well, California was huge this month, so we just hit that gap. And then New York was big last month. We hit there. So like we pay sales tax in Texas and we do that because we sell here. But we don't have to everywhere else. And we let Amazon and Etsy handle that for us. So that's why we don't have our own here, but that's probably an area where we're moving now that we have a good base. We're probably moving into that moving forward and probably gonna tackle that. So
if you're looking for just like a Shopify app for reviews, I would use Loox, Loox. We use that one. It's really, really simple.
I'll say too, like we do this a lot. You don't even necessarily need a plugin. Just we do a regular survey out to our customers, like an NPS, Net Promoter Score type survey. And we'll get feedback that way. And sometimes we'll just and we'll just put that like on the site. So just customers just want to see like that review, like that kind of, you know, peer feedback, if you will, validation. So like, it doesn't even have to be like a live plugin or something, just having some sort of a quote from a customer is more often than not what people are looking for.
Questions, any other questions from the audience? Oh, right in front, yes. Oh, wait.
I'm sorry, I came late, so you may have answered this, but do you guys do your own fulfillment? Well, you don't, because you guys,
We do our own fulfillment.
oh, you do?
We
Okay.
do. We do as
We're,
well.
we're a team of 4 and we ship everything locally. So yeah.
Okay. And you
We
said-
do as well.
Okay.
We have a question back there, if you want to pass the mic back. Oh, you got the phone. Yeah, sorry, guys.
Hi, do you guys have any shipping nightmare stories that you stay up at night thinking about? That's always can't get out of your head?
Yeah. So when we first started, we shipped through USPS because it's the lowest shipping rates for us. Like I said, everything, our average shipment cost is $1.20. So everything is super, super, super low. But with USPS becomes every single post office thinks they understand the rules of USPS better than anybody else. And so our first December, we sent 20,000 packages out one day, and I got a call from our post guy that was like, hey, it's all coming back to you. And I was like, what do you mean it's all coming back? It's like, yeah, they've turned it all away. They say you're not using the right shipping materials, like you're shipping them at too cheap of a cost. You need to do this. And we were like, no, we've had this like looked at. We've got paperwork on it. And he was like, nope, it's all coming back. And so I had to drive up to our local post office and like go talk to the station manager and explain like where we were at. And it was this pure and simple case of the person sorting it on the line had been there for 50 years, didn't understand the new regulations, thought we were sending something we weren't. And we actually figured out that we were sending them in like cardboard colored, it's like brown colored packaging, and switching to white caused less issues. It's the exact same thickness. It's the exact same everything, but the difference between the cardboard colored and the white, they see cardboard and they think has to be a package. You need to pay more. They see white and they don't care. So yeah.
Yeah, I've got a good one, which was ShipStation's fault. I'm just kidding. It was not ShipStation's fault. It was a user error. We before Christmas, I think we printed out like 50 orders. And our average order value is around $200. We switched to a different printer because we always have technical difficulties with our printer. Accidentally printed all those labels again. So about 50 orders got twice the amount of products. We tried to get some of them back. Some customers like cooperated and sent them back, but mainly had to bite the bullet on that one. So we were using ShipStation, but it was our fault.
From the United States. When I ship from the United States to Canada, sometimes it gets delayed. And I think one last month was delayed a month. And I tracked it and it was just stuck in customs. And I finally, one day I looked at it and it was moving all of a sudden. So I emailed the customer, say it's moving now. Yeah, rah, rah. So is that pretty common to get that much of a delay, at least a month, just shipping to Canada?
Was it before we get to our was this international?
Yeah.
Okay.
From US to
Canada, US,
Yes.
and during COVID or after?
That was last month.
Last?
Yeah, so I can tell you that's not normal. No,
Yeah.
like it does happen occasionally. It gets stuck in customs, you know, some particular port. Most things go through one of two areas in Canada, right? It either goes through Toronto or Vancouver. It's where most of so like a lot of times packages are going around. So like any port, sometimes things get stuck, but that isn't the norm. No, they're usually pretty good about it.
Is there anything you can do to correct that? You call them directly or email them?
I mean, I don't know the specifics of what you were shipping or where, but depending on the size or the price or, you know, a few other things. Occasionally there's additional paperwork that might need to be filled out that like if that wasn't there or if they thought it. So like I would just check the regulations around. Sometimes you need extra forms, sometimes you don't. So just making sure that your product doesn't fall near the edge maybe, where it's like maybe they question if it did or not. I don't know. But other than that, like sometimes it's just a little bit, anytime you ship international, sometimes it's just a little bit of a crapshoot.
All right. And another thing I would say is also talk, if you have a rep for your carrier, it doesn't hurt to ask them like, hey, this happened to us. Can you review these shipments with me and see if there's anything that I could have done? And sometimes the answer is no. So thank you for that question. And thank you everyone for all of your amazing questions today. Unfortunately, we are out of time and we appreciate you all for being so engaged and asking such amazing questions. And we want to thank our sponsors, Sendel and Walmart. And before we go away, I would like to announce the Big Ass Luxuries winner. And the winner of the 3D for Us giveaway. Sorry about that. Congrats to Bonnie Gray. You have won the Big Ass Luxuries giveaway. And congratulations to Michael Zunn. You've won the 3D for Us giveaway. And we will be emailing you soon to get your information so we can get you your prize. So thank you again. Ship and Sip is back. So if you or anyone you know would like to be nominated as a highlighted user, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or email the events team at events@shipstation.com. And thank you again, as always, and we will see y'all next time.
Thank you.